That was a little bit lukewarm, but that's probably appropriate. Before I start into this, I looked at the program just before I came up, and you heard that I'm a former high school band and orchestra director, and I realized that old habits apparently die hard, because if you look at the afternoon's program, right, what I was taught was you start the concert strong, you go with your weakest pieces in the middle, and you finish strong. So if you look at the afternoon's program, the panel was great. We're at the weakest link right now, but it gets better after me, so stick around, okay? I'm Kim Metcalf, Dean of the College of Education. First of all, once again, thank you all for being here. It's been fascinating to listen and watch as this has unfolded. What I'd like to do is just take a few minutes to talk about where we are as a state and a community, and the kinds of contributions that specifically our College of Education at UNLV can make, but in deference to my colleagues from other institutions around the state, the fact of the matter is all of the universities and colleges in the state have the potential to contribute to this work, and I think we need to make sure we recognize that. So my goal is to get into that a little bit as we go. So the title, the Nexus, UNLV's College of Education at the Nexus of Research, Policy, and Professional Practice. So let's dive into this. About 2 years ago, the faculty of the College of Education, oops, wrong order, my fault. Give you a minute to look at the cartoon. The point of this is, right, you're not necessarily going to like everything I have to say this afternoon. Right? And the fact of the matter is that's okay. Right? The goal of this event, of events like this, is not so that we can all go out necessarily saying exactly the same thing, agreeing on exactly what to do. The goal of events like this is to make sure we get ideas on the table and we understand all of the thinking that's going into solving the problem. Right? Frankly, some of the things I've heard today I don't agree with. Right? Let me enumerate. No, I won't do that. Right? So you're not going to agree with everything that I'm going to say, but I do hope I will spur some thinking, right, and some ideas. So now I think I'm back on track. Good. 2 years ago, the College of Education faculty initiated a process of strategic planning that resulted in a document we call Forging a Path to Tier 1. The vision that you see here was the foundation of that and has served as the foundation of the work that we've done since that time. 3 things I want to make sure I point out. One is the notion of local, national, and international influence. Second piece is a source of, it doesn't say answers. It says significant knowledge and innovative models. Right? Our goal, just like with this event, is not to tell people what to do, but rather to serve as a creative venue for ideas. And the third piece then is, as I've said over and over and over again today, and as you've heard throughout the day, to make sure we're doing what we can to influence policy, practice, and research in education. What you're going to hear is built around that. First sort of segment of this. Clark County and Southern Nevada more generally, and Nevada even more generally than that, are an amazing microcosm of what the U.S. is going to look like in another 25 years. In fact, if you look at racial and ethnic data, Clark County of 2015, while more diverse than the rest of the country today, very, very, very closely mirrors the population of the U.S. by 2040. So in that way, we are, in some ways, the future of the country. But it goes beyond that. It's not just racial and ethnic diversity that makes us look a lot like the U.S. of the future, but many of the other community and state issues that we're dealing with are those that are being faced or will be faced by other communities and states around the country. The notion of the wealth gap, very, very high wealth, very, very desperate poverty certainly is an element of Nevada. You heard other speakers today talk about the fact that Nevada is one of the few states that represents such a broad range of highly dense urban populations and very sparse rural populations that presents a series of issues and challenges to us. With all of that, and particularly in a state like Nevada that draws people from all over the world to pursue a better life, they bring with them their own unique languages. Right? You've heard people talk today about the fact that many of the children in our schools today don't use English as their first language. Many of their parents don't use English at all. So in all those ways, we know the U.S. is going to become more and more and more like we are now. The issues that we're dealing with and thinking about in terms of our community and our population are those that other people are or will be facing as we move forward. But it goes beyond that. The kinds of things that we're thinking about, debating, agreeing on, disagreeing on, trying, related to education and education improvement, school choice, standards, even school funding, are issues that states throughout the country are trying to figure out. Okay? Again, the notion that we can in some ways, and I'll use a phrase that was adapted by a UNLV president a couple of presidents ago, we have a living laboratory here, right, in this community. But I want to take it one step further, right? It's not just nationally, but internationally, particularly in terms of education. The education issues we're trying to deal with, that we're trying to solve, we're trying to address, we're trying to improve, are the same ones countries all over the world are attempting to figure out. The achievement gap, right? The gap in achievement between kids who come from relatively well-off backgrounds and those who come from backgrounds of poverty. But even the issue that has come up over and over and over again today, that we often believe is uniquely acute to Las Vegas, the teacher shortage is not just here. This is actually about a year and a half old. The number of countries is greater, and I don't have the exact number, but the teacher shortage is actually global in nature. The point of all of that, and you've heard other people, including the governor, talk about this, folks are watching what happens in Nevada. They're watching to see what we do and how we do it and how it works. Because of that, we have both an opportunity and a responsibility. The fact of the matter is, we have the opportunity to take what we're doing, to learn from it, to share it in ways that can help people throughout the state, throughout the country, and around the world better educate kids. You can argue, this may be one of the things you'll disagree with me on, right? I was talking to somebody earlier this morning who said, it's not our responsibility to take care of people outside Nevada. Well, it may be argued that that's the case, but the fact of the matter is, if we can learn things and share them in ways that improve the lives of children and families everywhere, I would argue we have a responsibility, not just an opportunity, a responsibility to do that. So point number one here is that where we are situated and the time in which we're living, right, the notion that we're all together to talk about these issues here in Nevada becomes very, very important, and it's something we need to leverage, and I'll get back to that one in a minute. Second piece of this, however, is although there is no shortage of people who will tell us otherwise, we don't know the answer. We don't know how to educate large numbers of very diverse children in ways that are consistently effective. We don't know. If we knew, we would do it. Right? In fact, don't say anything out loud, just out of curiosity. If I were to say to you, the answer is 42, how many of you would know what I'm referring to? Anybody want to say it? Pardon? And what work? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? That was the answer after, I think it was 7.5 million years, to the question that they had asked, what is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything? After 7.5 million years, the answer was 42. Well, the point of that is, okay, a few people laughed. That's about as funny as I can get, okay? The point of that is we don't know. We don't know how to do what the governor has set us on a course to do. It's not that we don't care. It's not that there aren't people who will tell us they know. There's no shortage of people who will say, if you will hire me, or if you will buy what I'm selling, or if you will implement the model that I've developed, your problems will be solved. The fact of the matter is, it's not true. The fact, bottom line is, education is messy. We know an awful lot about how individuals learn. We know a great deal about how the brain receives information, perceives information, processes information, recalls, retrieves, integrates information on an individual level. But in public education, whether it's charters or what we might call traditional public schools, the fact of the matter is we're not talking about one child. We're talking about how that process works for literally, in Clark County, hundreds of thousands of children at a time. When you begin to do that, you have to deal with a whole host of factors related to the child, the family, the community, the society in which all of this is taking place, the science and technology that are available. All of those things influence the effectiveness of this large-scale effort to educate lots of kids. Those factors independently, and as statisticians would say, in interaction, affect all of that. Some of them we can't even control, right? Terry mentioned something about this earlier. There are things we can't do anything about as schools, but they affect student learning. So what we do, because we do care, we care very, very much about those kids. We want them to learn. We want them to be successful. So in this web of things that affect how children learn and how effective our schools and our public education system may be, we identify places where we think we can make a difference. We take an idea that we believe should work and we try it in a classroom or in a school or in a district or in a state. The problem is the complexity of this issue is such that no one of those is going to be the answer. In fact, I'll make a statement that I have debated for a week and a half about making. I don't know that we'll ever have the answer. Now, I don't mean that to be quite as pessimistic as it may seem, right? But Jamie said this morning, there's no end point, right? We'll never be there. We'll never get to a point where we can say, that's it, we're done, got it, figured that one out. In that environment, the best that we can do, and these terms came out repeatedly today as well, is be creative and innovative and take risks. Simply trying to do what we've done before, but better, or harder, or by golly, we're just going to be more accountable for it, doesn't work. Right? I think it was Einstein, right, who said doing the insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It doesn't matter if we do the same things better than we did before. We've got to think differently. Jamie talked about how the world and kids are different. Right? The things that we've done before, even if they had worked in the past, maybe they did, maybe they didn't, aren't likely to work as we move forward. What should we be doing? No one knows. So what we have to do, and it's why I think what the governor and Dale and their team has done is so remarkable. What they've said is, we're going to try this. We're going to try a range of things. Some of them are pretty new, some are not so new, but they're tweaked a little bit. We're going to put them together and we're going to see what happens. And many of those initiatives are intended to encourage schools or districts or building leaders to be innovative, take chances, and be creative. But it isn't only that. There's a second piece to it that becomes absolutely critical. As we are innovative, it's not innovation for its own sake. It's not change for its own sake. But they are systematic attempts to enter into what Jamie called an iterative process wherein we create an idea, we implement it, we rigorously and systematically evaluate it, we revise it or adapt it or throw it out, and we enter the process again. Now that's easy to say when you're talking about somebody else's ideas. Right? It's pretty easy for me to look out here and say, Todd, I think what we need to do is test your ideas, and you need to be completely open to whatever the data say. Right? If they say it doesn't work, that's what we're going to go with. Right? It's pretty easy to do that. It's much different to say to myself, I'm going to be open to the idea that the data may show what I thought would work, didn't work. And if the data show that, then we have to be willing to change. Right? The goal and the point of this is, the environment is such that we have to be in that iterative process of creation, implementation, research or evaluation, revision, and so forth. In that context, I would argue places like the College of Education at UNLV are in a particularly unique position to facilitate that work. Again, in an environment where innovation and iterative systematic evaluation and revision are a priority, colleges of education are set up uniquely to serve in that situation. I say that based on 3 roles that a college of education has, and I want to take just a minute and talk about those. The first is one that I suspect all of us think of when we think of the College of Education. That's the notion of providing professional education to people, preparing folks to be teachers or principals or superintendents or ELL specialists or special educators or counselors or school psychologists, all of those things. And in fact, right, our College of Education does that. We do a lot of it. Dina mentioned in the video, right, we just received 50 scholarships to expand our ability to recruit. He's not here, so I'll mention, I saw Tom Piota. Tom, are you still here? Close your ears. Thank you. Tom's the vice president. The president has tentatively agreed to give us additional resources to expand pretty dramatically our capacity to prepare more teachers. Right? We do those things, and I would argue we do them pretty well. You heard about the Ph.D, so it goes beyond classroom level instructors. Right? A second piece, though, of the professional preparation is this notion of we, too, are responsible, and in fact, it's part of our mission, to be innovative about the approaches we use to do that. For example, my colleagues in the College of Education have already, in a little over a year, developed and implemented more than a dozen alternative pathways for people who are interested and qualified to become teachers to become licensed. Many of those programs get them in classrooms full-time to be paid in just a matter of weeks. Very, very innovative. There are other things that fall into that category. The Rebel Academy that we offered this summer that brings students in from the community for additional work, at the same time serves as a ground for us to prepare other teachers who could begin in the fall. So those are 2. This notion of preparing educators has to be a piece of this. Second is one that I think often gets overlooked, and that's the notion of the College of Education or colleges of education as places that provide education services. And again, there's the notion of creating innovation in the way we provide those services. And our faculty are directly involved in doing that, creating new pedagogy and technology and assessments and curriculum in terms of birth through adulthood, learning and education. Right? Second piece of that is we, in fact, do directly provide a range of services as a college. We need to. Right? It's the way we test the ideas we have. So our Zeter Center for Literacy tutors children from around the community and families, many of them ELL children, right, in reading to build literacy skills. The Practice Clinic we co-sponsor with the College of Liberal Arts provides no-cost or low-cost counseling services to families and children in need. The Center for Autism Spectrum Disorders does things that are similar. We offer a variety of programs that are not just to prepare educators, and they're not just for research, but they are intended to provide what I'm going to refer to as world-class education services to families and to children. Now, the third piece is the one that I think in colleges of education located or situated in research institutions becomes somewhat more unique, but certainly all at the same time more critical. That's the notion of systematic research and scholarship. I'm sorry, my throat's getting dry and my voice is starting to squeak, right? It's not puberty. That was a while ago. And again, there are sort of two aspects to this. One of them, and I would hope that this summit is an example of that. One of the things we have a responsibility for as a college of education is, thank you very much, is to pull together information, research, policy, examples from other sources and put it together in ways that is useful for people who need to use it at the time. Again, policymakers, practitioners, other researchers, so forth. You heard in the video, one of the things that I'm really proud of that our faculty did this past legislative session are those 8 legislative white papers. Again, not to shape policy, but to inform policy. There are a variety of ways in which the college does that, but they become a piece of this as well. The other side of it is actually generating new research findings. Right? Our faculty are directly responsible for, and they're quite good at, conducting research and evaluation. You heard Gwen mention one of the studies that they're involved in, but we have the capacity to do that systematic research that has to be a piece of that iterative process. So putting those all together, we get back to this notion of the nexus. Right? I would argue that because of the nature of colleges of education, where we are intentionally combining preparing education professionals, providing high-quality educational services, and doing systematic inquiry, forms a nexus that can inform all of those areas in very, very important ways at a time when, again, we don't have the answer. In our own College of Education, there are a number of examples where those 3 pieces come together. Many of you, though, I'll use one that I think many of you will be familiar with, the Lynn Bennett Early Childhood Education or Development Center, funded with great support by the Bennett family years ago. This facility, located on campus, operated by the College of Education, serves several hundred children, birth to 5, in an inclusive setting that, in fact, is world-renowned. The services they provide are absolutely amazing. It serves directly as a training ground in which we prepare our early childhood educators. And it was designed with the intention of facilitating ongoing research of early childhood development, of early childhood education, and of the preparation of early childhood educators. There are a number of things that the College of Education is looking to do as we move forward to expand that kind of model. But again, it's the notion of pulling those three pieces together that we can do that I think has the capacity to inform the dialogue that we've been engaged in today. So, we've covered a lot of territory, as my father would say, over the day. We talked about the fact that Clark County in Nevada should in fact serve to inform education and policy decisions around the country and around the world. We talked about the fact that we are in a particularly unique period and situation, and the governor has put us here, where we can in fact emphasize creative and innovative approaches to these issues and engage in the kind of systematic inquiry that will allow us to determine what works, what doesn't work, and how to make it better as we go forward. And we came to the point where the vision of the College of Education, the vision that the faculty have used to guide them in their work over these past couple of years, comes into play. The notion of leveraging what we have here to gather information that can be disseminated in ways that make a difference to folks across those three different kinds of audiences. It is that message and those 3 points that brings us back to where we are today, to this summit, to the day that you have agreed to commit to hear these things. I thank you very much for your time, and I hope I have prompted you to think about some things maybe you didn't before. Thank you. Did you cut me off? What, was it Ronald Reagan who said, "I'm paying for this microphone"? I do think I know what I'm supposed to do next. Dale? There he is. Well, here we go. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. He's been on the stage before today. Everyone in the room knows him. And you know what? Bear with me, Dale. I'm not going to use the notes that I have. I'll say this. I became an educator because I wanted to make a difference. Right? I wanted the world to be different because I had been a part of it. I became, believe it or not, a university faculty member for the same reason. I thought if I could help prepare and inform a generation of educators to go out and make a difference, then the world would be even better perhaps because I was here. While there are those on my faculty out here who I'm going to ask not to say anything at this point, I became a dean for a similar reason, right? If I can support good faculty doing good things, influencing folks to go out and make a difference, then I've justified the space and air and resources I've taken up for however long I'm here. Through that journey, I've come across a lot of people in a lot of different roles, many of them very, very powerful, very influential, and very bright. Most of them were genuinely committed to the work that they were doing. Most of them wanted to do the right thing for the people they served. Many of them were incredibly bright, and a somewhat smaller number of those folks were truly good people who meant a great deal to me. There are fewer than a handful of people who fall into all three of those categories across the 58 years I've been on this earth. Dale Archiaga is one of those people. He does what he does because he believes in the work. He's been a great supporter of me and of the College of Education since I got here when he was serving as superintendent. We've built, this is just me, you don't have to comment on this, Dale. I would consider Dale one of my good friends. The work that he and the governor did this past legislative session truly is remarkable. And at this point, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome to the stage Dale Archiaga. Dale, please.